The agenda of our Dharma event today is that after the Dharma lecture, we will impart some prayers and mantras to you, and then we will take a break for 10 to 15 minutes. Following that, we will teach you the visualizations involved in smoke offerings, as well as bathing the Buddha. The Buddha bathing ceremony also involves some visualization practices. Let us first give the 18th lecture of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series. Today's topic is the characteristics of a Dharma practitioner with realizations. Many people should have heard the term realizations. People often say so-and-so Dharma practitioner has reached a very advanced level in their Dharma practice and attained a very high level of realizations. However, how many people actually understand what realizations mean? What exactly is being measured here? And what has been realized? They do not know very well. Hence, today we will describe and explain the characteristics of those who truly possess realizations. Let us remind you about this first. In the 17th session, we mentioned a Dharma believer who emailed us to ask the following questions. The White Sect, Kagyu school, of Tibetan Buddhism believes that there are 4 stages in a person's Dharma practice. First, one must observe the precepts carefully. Second, it is no longer necessary for one to keep the precepts, but the behaviors of one's body, speech, and mind all naturally conform to the precepts. Third, the next stage is crazy wisdom. One will become crazy. All his or her behaviors will become crazy. They even called such crazy behaviors as wisdom. They named it crazy wisdom, that is, the wisdom of craziness. Fourth, one must go through the stage of craziness before attaining Buddhahood. The so-called crazy wisdom, a kind of wisdom that makes one go insane, should be the stage before the ultimate enlightenment in esoteric Buddhism. Is it right or wrong? What are the reasons for being right or wrong? In fact, we already explained it in the 17th lecture. But after that session, I received a mail from one of my disciples. He came up with a lot of questions based on what I had explained. Since I am explaining this topic, he really hoped that I could be more straightforward and clearer in my further explanation in order to save those practicing or wanting to practice esoteric Buddhism from dangers and pains, as well as rescue them from the traps. He wrote such an email. This email was addressed directly to the 2 of us, Vajra Master Yeshathay and Vajra Master Pema Ladran. He wrote, "I'm very grateful and thankful for the revelations bestowed by the most beloved and respectable Vajra Masters, and for reminding me to dedicate merits. If I do have any virtuous merits, I would like to dedicate them to all motherly sentient beings. But may I ask if the most beloved and respectable Vajra Masters could give some invaluable revelations on the situations where the motherly sentient beings are affected, or will be affected by a Guru, Dharma Master, or a liar such as Sojal Rinpoche?" My disciple said he would be extremely grateful and thankful. He said, as a matter of fact, the ordinary motherly sentient beings, and even those Buddhist learners, as well as the people who have learned Buddhism for a while, find it difficult to distinguish. In other words, one will not be able to distinguish regardless of how long one has learned Buddhism. They cannot tell if these gurus like Sojal Rinpoche are the real gurus with realizations. He said he saw an introduction to Sojal Rinpoche on pages 462 to 463 of the English version of A Marvelous Garland of Rare Gems, Biographies of Masters of Awareness in the Dzogchen Lineage. It states that Sojal studied the Great Perfection, the highest level of Dharma practice method of the Red Sect, Nyingma school, of Tibetan Buddhism. He seemed to be a well-known teacher of the Great Perfection. That is to say, he must have reached a very high level, as he knew how to teach the most difficult Great Perfection. On top of that, he was such a famous teacher. At the same time, there are still some very famous Rinpoches writing articles to support him now. He made such a serious mistake, hitting his disciples, sexual promiscuity, sexual assault, or treating his disciples with a lot of obscene or violent behaviors, causing them to be harmed. Some even wanted to seek legal aid, while some sued him directly and took him to court. My disciple did not understand. Sojal was so well known, and his behavior was so crazy. Yet there are still so many famous Rinpoches writing articles to support him now. Therefore, my disciple said, for the ordinary motherly sentient beings who are not Dharma practitioners with the realizations, it is truly difficult for them to distinguish. The fact is that Sojal's behaviors were violent, erotic, and insane. Despite such crazy behaviors, why are so many people still following and adoring him? Why did some famous books still introduce him as a tutor who teaches a very high level of Dharma practice? How do we ordinary sentient beings know how to distinguish? His behaviors were so dreadful, but you all still followed and adored him. Should we believe he is an excellent guru, a liar, or a terrible guru? My disciple asked, how can the motherly sentient beings tell the difference? This is the most pressing issue. He said, I have been bestowed revelations from the most beloved and respectable Vajra masters on how to distinguish between authentic versus fake gurus, and authentic versus fake lineages. I have also learned how to get along with gurus from the explanations of the 8th episode of The 50 Stanzas of Guru Devotion. These gurus who teach us esoteric Buddhism, those teachers from exoteric Buddhism, can also be called gurus. How do we get along with these so-called Dharma masters or gurus? And how should we build up trust between us? My disciple said, I have also watched the first lecture of the Compassion and Bodhicitta series. I am truly grateful and thankful. As for such crazy acts of Sojal, beatings, fornication, squandering, etc., the most beloved and respectable Vajra masters have given revelations earlier on that judging by his behaviors, Sojal's crazy behaviors were problematic, and so we should stay away from him. You taught us so. But why do some disciples in the United States, that is, Sojal's disciples, still hold a pure view of him and approve of what he did? On the other hand, some others have doubts and criticize their guru, Sojal, and question whether he was right or wrong. In other words, Sojal's disciples were wondering. So many people, even many of their fellow Dharma brothers and sisters, were criticizing their guru. They would wonder if these criticisms are right or wrong. My disciple said, I think perhaps they thought, first, Sojal was a guru with the realizations. So, they took beatings as blessings and crazy behaviors as teachings. Is that so? He asked me this. Why did these disciples of Sojal's have such thoughts? Because they expressed their opinions on YouTube, or on some websites, which my disciple felt strange after reading or watching. So my disciple asked if it was because they felt Sojal had a lot of realizations, and so he was right to beat them as he was blessing them for their own good. These crazy behaviors were to teach you. It was a kind of demonstrative teaching. He asked me if that was how it could be explained. The second question he asked is, there are some advanced practice methods in esoteric Buddhism. That is, when people have practiced to an advanced level, their behavior will appear to be a little crazy. So is it because of this that the correctness of Sojal's crazy behaviors is a question mark? Is it because he had practiced the holy Dharma to such a high level that he was supposed to be a little crazy? Since he was about to attain Buddhahood, he must go insane. He would not attain Buddhahood if he did not lose his mind. Is this true? Is there such a thing? My disciple said, on top of that, Sojal's words were influential to a certain degree. As you know, Sojal has 360 Dharma centers around the globe. You can imagine that there are so many of his believers at each center. Based on that, you will find that his influence is pretty substantial. So, he has a certain degree of influence. Because of this, of course, the damage he has caused is even more extensive. Apart from his influence, many famous Rinpoches are still supporting him. After such a big scandal, they continue to write articles to support him. As a result, Sojal's disciples in the United States still hold a pure view of him. They felt that since he had already reached such a high level in his Dharma practice, and was about to attain Buddhahood, he had to act so crazy. It is a good thing that he is about to attain Buddhahood. It is good to be crazy like this. They consider such behaviors to be good. They hold such a pure view of their guru. Whatever he did was good. Whatever he did was right. Why? Because he is about to attain Buddhahood. My disciple would like to ask, firstly, how do we judge whether this guru or teacher has realizations? Is there a way to judge? Secondly, suppose it is difficult to tell whether a guru has realizations, and no one can tell me how to distinguish them. Perhaps I need to practice the holy Dharma to a certain level to distinguish them. Since our level of Dharma practice is relatively low, we do not know how to tell the difference. If that is the case, the most important question will be, are there any norms to one's behaviors that appear crazy when practicing the advanced Dharma methods of esoteric Buddhism? Are there any norms or standards of behavior? When someone claims to be famous and a guru who teaches people to practice the holy Dharma, he or she will affect many sentient beings. In a situation like this, his or her behaviors should be subject to norms. If we cannot distinguish them, are there some norms, like a yardstick, that allow us to measure and gauge whether there is a problem with this guru? My disciple asked these two questions. He said, I understand that the ordinary motherly sentient beings, and even those Buddhist learners, as well as the people who have learned Buddhism for a while, including myself, should not and do not need to understand what these advanced level Dharma practices are. He said he did not know these advanced level Dharma practices, and why one would go insane by practicing them. But a Dharma practitioner, who has truly attained realizations, should have followed the teachings of their gurus in their Dharma practices. Or, those who already have realizations, and can continue practicing the holy Dharma by themselves will naturally be subject to the norms of their Dharma practices. Although we do not need to understand it in detail, they may affect some motherly sentient beings during their Dharma practices. Therefore, they should be subject to norms. If they surpass these norms, it means there is something wrong with their behaviors, which are indeed some crazy behaviors that should not be allowed. As their disciples, we should stay away from them. This is what my disciple thought. He said, I recalled the revelations once bestowed by the most beloved and respectable Vajra masters. You said His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche once made a revelation. His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche was one of the 3 root gurus of Vajra Master Yeshe Thay and me. His Holiness was a hidden yogi from the Red Sect, Nyingma school, who practiced the Great Perfection, and was recognized as a Dharma practitioner with the highest level of realizations. He was a very high-level Dharma practitioner. There were a lot of prophecies about him. But my disciple said, His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche once made a revelation. What would happen to a Dharma practitioner who has reached the highest level in their Dharma practice? They would just look like an ordinary person. They turned out to be the same as ordinary people. My disciple guessed, it could mean that their appearances and behaviors are the same as ordinary people. That is, they would not show any behavior that seems crazy. Ordinary people will not be crazy. That is, truly high-level Dharma practitioners will not be crazy, too. Is this what it means? He asked. Since His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche said that a Dharma practitioner, who has cultivated to the highest level should look like an ordinary person, but not be a crazy person. Is it possible that their behaving like ordinary people is not in line with the general public's concept that a Dharma practitioner should have a framework? That is, Dharma practitioners should behave like this. Anyone who does not fit into this framework is crazy. Is that what he meant? My disciple said, these are just my guessing. Please correct me, the most beloved and respectable Vajra masters. The above are some of my very confused and immature thoughts. I really hope that the most beloved and respectable Vajra masters could give invaluable revelations to those motherly sentient beings who have been affected, and who would be affected, so that they and their lives of wisdom, which we call wisdom life, will no longer be damaged, and their Dharma practices and achievements can be accomplished smoothly, thereby benefiting all motherly sentient beings. I would be very grateful and thankful. He said, I sincerely pray that the most respectable Lords of Refuge and Protector, Vajra Master Yeshathay and Vajra Master Pemaladran, can fulfill your wishes, be in good health, live a long and comfortable life, always stay in the world, greatly promulgate the genuine holy Dharma, and benefit all motherly sentient beings. I also pray that all motherly sentient beings can get rid of their ignorance and arouse their wisdom, able to hear the genuine holy Dharma, practice diligently, have sufficient merits and resources, and accomplish success quickly. He is one of our disciples named Guat Kyung. He said he hoped that the wishes of his two gurus, our wishes, could be fulfilled. What are our wishes, in fact? Our wishes are to be able to correct some of the totally distorted and erroneous concepts and teachings of Buddhism nowadays, and the things you have misunderstood in order to save sentient beings, especially in terms of esoteric Buddhism. This is our wish. That is why we have given so many lectures, in an attempt to correct some of your concepts of Buddhism. It is to save you all, hoping that you will not go astray. Because if you do, you will be miserable. There is no turning back in many places. Even if there is, you will not know how many kalpa of rebirths in the 3 lower realms you must go through before turning back. That kind of misery and pain, in fact, cannot be expressed in words as to how miserable it is. So, this is our wish, hoping to correct the wrong things, thereby destroying evil and revealing righteousness. Our 17th session mentioned why some people always say that going insane is right and good. One should become crazy during the very stage prior to attaining Buddhahood. However, according to the new translation of the Essential Uncommon Teachings of Mahamudra, assembled a few hundred years ago, by Guru Daba Middenmingda Ligon, a guru of the White Sect Kagyu school, it contains such a text. It states, at all times, as an esoteric Buddhism practitioner, in fact, we need to visualize our gurus seating over the top of our heads at all times. In certain situations, we even need to visualize our gurus being integrated into our body without abandoning or leaving them. Such visualization practice will provide protection to us and assist us in merging into the Dharma realm. If one abides as such, if you visualize in this way, it will be very easy for you to generate bliss, happiness, luminosity, brightness, and no thought, without any thoughts, thinking, or notions. At that time, in these states, if bliss surges up, if the happiness becomes too excessive or too intensive, one will go into a frenzy. You will be delirious. You will go insane. If one abides in bliss, if you are obsessed with the bliss, one will be born in the desire realm. You will take rebirth in the desire realm, which includes the realms of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. The low-level heavenly realms are also part of the desire realm, and so is the realm of humans. If one abides in luminosity, if you are obsessed with the luminosity, one will be born in the form realm. You will take rebirth in the form realm, the high-level heavenly realms. If one abides in no thought, if you do not have any thoughts and thinking, one will be born in the formless realm. You will be trapped in the formless realm, where there are no material substances at all. If none of these three is adopted or held onto, if you neither adopt nor hold onto these three things, without getting attached to or abiding in any one of them, it is the true path. That is the true method and path of your Dharma practice. Actually, these have already been explained in the previous session. These special terms refer to the realizing and sensing experienced at the advanced level of Dharma practice, and are called bliss, luminosity, and no thought. We have explained bliss in the previous session. It refers to the situation that occurs when some Dharma practitioners who have practiced to a certain extent reach a certain level of Dharma practice. So, many scammers have tried to imitate them. Now let us explain going into a frenzy first. What is it like when someone has gone insane? How has one become crazy? We really need to understand it. I will quote from some Abhidharma, or works of some senior Dharma practitioners. There is a term called drunken madness, which means drinking like crazy, drunk to the point of insanity, and then doing all sorts of nasty things under drunkenness. In short, killing and arson, anything goes. This is called drunken madness. The second type is meat madness. What is meat madness? It means catching an animal, such as catching a fish in the river, and biting it to death immediately, biting the fish alive until it dies painfully. Eating animals alive is called meat madness, binge eating raw meats. The third is sentient being killing madness. It means killing people, including brutal killings. The fourth is sexual madness, indulging in sexual relationships between men and women, including sexual assaults. The fifth is babbling madness, which means talking nonsense. This includes mimicking a dog barking, or crawling on the floor like a dog. In short, it includes any behavior you would consider crazy. The sixth is doing everything that violates the precepts. For someone that has become so crazy like this, you still praise his behaviors for being a kind of wisdom. Who is the one with problems here, you or him? Perhaps you are even crazier than him. Anyone who praises him for having wisdom, I think, is crazier than the person who is violating the precepts. There is a special term in esoteric Buddhism that refers to such crazy behaviors described in this writing. What is it called? Practices of Pu Chan. Be careful not to mix it up with another term, practices of Samantabhadra. They are two different things. The term practices of Pu Chan is used to describe these several types of madness specifically. I am only quoting it, which clearly describes how one can become crazy like this. You can refer to the collection of Lamdre, Path and Fruit, teachings of the secret collection of works on the essential path of Mahayana. Take a look at it and you will know. So, some scammers employ such behaviors to deceive others for money and sex, telling others, I've practiced the holy Dharma to a very high level, and I am about to attain Buddhahood. It is necessary to be crazy prior to attaining Buddhahood. All of these acts that I engaged in were not violation of the precepts. It'd be a violation of the precepts if others did it, but not so if I was the one who did it. They know how to utter a few Buddhist terminologies, and can deceive others. So, they claim themselves to be Mahasiddha, Great Accomplished One. In the first lecture of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series, I mentioned a person called Chogyam Trungpa. People called him Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. When all of you hear the word Rinpoche, your eyes will shine as if you have actually seen a treasure. You think they are some great Dharma practitioners, and you would be blessed as soon as they touch your head. I do not know if you are crazy, or they are crazy. In short, everyone loses their minds when hearing the name Rinpoche, and loses their ability to distinguish as well as their wisdom. Without any ability to discern, you will be on the chopping block. You all really have to be vigilant of this. Chogyam Trungpa wrote a book called Crazy Wisdom, as I mentioned before. He advocated indulgence in all sorts of behaviors. He believed that only by doing so could one successfully practice the great perfection. This is, in fact, a misconception. You will know when you look at His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche, who was the great perfection practitioner with the highest level of realizations. He never behaved crazily like them, not at all. Instead, he observed every precept very well and very strictly. He upheld all precepts in an exceptionally strict manners. He was not like them preaching that behavioral indulgence is the same as practicing the great perfection. This Chogyam Trungpa was not afraid of violating all the precepts. He indulged in alcohol and drugs. Why did he take drugs? I can tell you. It is because he felt that among bliss, luminosity, and no thought, the joy of bliss is beyond words. He was unable to practice the holy Dharma to reach such a state, but he yearned for this state, so he took drugs. Do you know that some people feel ecstatic after taking drugs, so happy that they forget everything? He craved that feeling, or a state as he thought. But he was unable to reach that state with actual practices, so he attempted to enter that state by taking drugs. That was precisely what he did. So, he not only took drugs, but also messed around with many of his female disciples, resulting in a lot of sexual promiscuity among his disciples, both male and female. He had a senior disciple and lineage holder, Thomas Frederick Rich Jr., whose Dharma name was Osel Tenzin, who contracted AIDS because of this. But since he was the lineage holder, he took in a large number of disciples. His disciples were really miserable. As the disciples of these so-called Rinpoche, I feel that they were like having fallen into the abyss of the most extreme pain. From his conversations with others and his writings, Osel Tenzin actually said this. He said, "I have AIDS. But after meeting with my guru, Chogyam Trungpa, I thought I would be blessed and be fine." Of course, my guru is Chogyam Trungpa, who is so powerful. He wrote a book called Crazy Wisdom. How amazing he is! Although I have AIDS, it should be cured after talking to him. I believed I'd be blessed by talking to him. I've already spoken to him that I've got this disease. I thought I'd be fine after telling him. How was I supposed to know it wouldn't work? So, he spread AIDS to even more people. As a result, the number of victims reached dozens. Soon after that, this lineage holder died. He died of AIDS, and everyone infected by him also died. How miserable it was. If you still praise that this behavior is right, I would like to ask, are you the one who is crazy or they? Or are you crazier than them? Since Chogyam Trungpa's group was established relatively earlier in the US, this kind of crazy wisdom is now very popular in the West. It has almost been pushed to its peak. Recently it has spread to the East. If you go to a bookshop, you will find books on crazy wisdom, holy madness, the mad saint, the divine madman, and so on. Lots of books have appeared. As such, craziness has become a big hit. If you buy their books, read them, and learn from them, I fear that something will also happen in the East. Because it was established in the US earlier, and the group was quite huge, so many people fell victim to it. The situation became a big scandal in the West back then, although the news died away later. No one knew and no one paid any more attention. Now the crazy wisdom, or holy madness, has been pushed to its peak. That is, people are proud of being crazy and consider the craziness as wisdom to infect other Dharma practitioners. This is very serious. Well, we explained about spiritual crisis in the last session. We talked about why these people ended up in such insanity. It was not because they practiced the holy Dharma well. Doing well in Dharma practice will not make you crazy, not doing well will. Those situations are caused by a spiritual crisis. What are the situations? Doing poorly in mind training. You know that many Dharma practitioners only follow the practice methods. They do not pay attention to the mind training. They do not keep precepts, and their meditational power is not good either. They also lack understanding of emptiness. Why is that so? It is very simple. I have a Dharma brother who claims to be a senior Dharma brother. If you ask him about emptiness, he does not even know that emptiness means neither existence nor voidness. He does not know how to explain it. But he has already become a guru now. You can thus imagine that there are many more people like him out there. I suppose 8 out of 10 people who have become the so-called gurus do not know how to explain emptiness. If you are unable to explain emptiness, you cannot call yourself a qualified guru. Because if you do not understand emptiness, and then you teach sentient beings indiscriminately some visualization practices, without incorporating emptiness, it will be very dangerous for them. They will easily become attached to abiding in notions. What are the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions? Whether it is the first or second oral pith instruction, you are required not to abide in notions. You will be doomed if you abide in notions. You will surely take rebirth, and can never be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence in any way. If a guru only knows to teach people to visualize, but does not teach them how to cooperate with emptiness, they will abide in notions. Abiding in notions will take a heavy toll on sentient beings in the future. It is unacceptable if the guru neither teaches mind training nor talks about the precepts. It is no good for one to only have meditational power. No matter how high the meditational power is, there are limits to it if one does not work with mind training and emptiness. Hence, these phenomena of going crazy will occur. They have practiced to the point of insanity. Those who follow them will, needless to ask, also go insane. Even if they do not go insane, they will still go astray. In the last session, we already explained why one would go crazy. Firstly, there is an unlimited release of information from their 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates have already been explained. Even if you are not a Dharma practitioner, but an ordinary person, when you die, all the 5 databases that store all your behaviors and memories, including the concepts, or data records of any forms, appearances, or material substances, or all your feelings from the past to the present or even the future, and all the relevant data of your behavioral formula and programming. These are the aggregate of form, Rupa Skanda, and the aggregate of sensations, Vedana Skanda. The aggregate of perceptions, Samjna Skanda, is all the behavioral formulas and programming about thinking. What you have thought, or have not thought about, or even thoughts that will be projected in the future will all affect you. The aggregate of mental formation, Samskara Skanda, is all your behaviors, all the things you have done, and all your stored behavioral formulas and programming, regardless of whether in terms of body, speech, or mind. And even the aggregate of consciousness, Vijnana Skanda, all the information that has been collected by your mental consciousness will be released and affect you. Those scenes, as we said in the previous lecture, most people cannot withstand them and will go crazy. So, we have to follow and practice the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra. The second situation is because you have really practiced the holy Dharma to a high level, such that bliss, luminosity, and no thought have appeared. You will go crazy if you abide too much in the notion of bliss. Thirdly, it is because of your erroneous views, leading you to a dead end. Even for ordinary people, or any sentient being, there will be unlimited release of information from their 5 aggregates when they die. Hence, if you do not understand and apply the 2 oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra, in fact, you will be in a high-risk state and still have to face it eventually. That is why Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said most sentient beings will fall into the 3 lower realms after death, with the majority to the realm of hells. Secondly, only those advanced level Dharma practitioners will experience these realizing and sensing called bliss, luminosity, and no thought. They will become crazy if they are attached to the bliss. Thirdly, I can tell you that erroneous views are common among Dharma practitioners. 9 out of 10 Dharma practitioners have incorrect views in many aspects. These incorrect views will cause them to go astray farther and farther later. A millimeter miss is as good as 1,000 miles. As long as you have taken just a minor wrong step in the beginning, you will have deviated further and further until it becomes thousands of miles away in the end. That is how it came about. So, What is one of the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra? It is, should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. Do not be attached to these. At least, you will not be caught and trapped by them. But does that mean you can be saved? Of course not. Therefore, the second oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra is the most fascinating and essential, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. You should develop your mind without abiding in notions or being trapped by any point. What kind of mind does it refer to? It refers to realizing and knowing. You should arouse your realizing and knowing, the one with a very high level of clarity. The mind here does not refer to the mind of distracting thoughts, which thinks about this and that casually, but realizing and knowing of a very high level of clarity. Okay. One of the lineage masters of Tibetan Buddhism, a very famous one from the Kagyu school, is called Jetsun Milarepa. I believe many of you have heard of his name. I would suggest you all read his biography, which is excellent. In The 100,000 Songs of Milarepa, translated by Professor Gama Chang Chen Kai, describes the 3 reasons for the spiritual crisis that I mentioned before. However, he did not refer to the phenomenon as a spiritual crisis, but instead used another term called going astray. I have described early on the 3 reasons that will cause one to go astray. The first is that you are an ordinary person, and there is an unlimited release of the information from your 5 aggregates, and so you will get into trouble. Second, bliss, luminosity, and no thought have appeared because you do very well in your Dharma practice. But if you are too attached to the bliss, you will also get into trouble. Third, if your views are erroneous, you will again get into trouble. These are the 3 reasons that will cause you to experience a spiritual crisis. This Milarepa has actually described and explained the reasons for these 3 kinds of spiritual crisis, but he called them going astray. He explained them in even greater detail, and I will try to explain what he said. Firstly, all sentient beings in the 3 realms are lost in the 6 realms and go astray because of the karma of greed. He said, for what reason do all sentient beings in the 3 realms, sentient beings of the 6 realms, have to continue reincarnation? It is due to the karma of greed. Among greed, hatred, and ignorance, he only mentioned greed, but not hatred and ignorance. Why did he highlight greed so much? What is the meaning of greed? Why will you be attracted and trapped by a certain scene, a certain mind and thought, and a certain pitfall? It is because of greed. Because you want to look at it more and study it, for you find it interesting. Or you may suddenly see a scene after death and realize it is something that happened before that made you either very sad or very happy, or a scene that drove you crazy and made you lose control of your emotions. With just a glimpse at it, your greed will arise. What are you greedy about? You want to revisit the situation back then. This is also considered greed. And you will be immediately attracted by its connection and indulge in it. Once you have indulged yourself with it, you will take rebirth. That is why he said, going astray because of the karma of greed. So, when we die, which of greed, hatred, and ignorance can make you continue to reincarnate and die most miserably? It is greed. Because of it, you will end up having no freedom and will continue to accept endless suffering in reincarnation. Secondly, he said, Sravakas or self-beneficial Hinayana practitioners go astray because of their attachment to the bliss of calmness and extinction, nirvana. Hinayana, Dharma practitioners only care about themselves and how to benefit themselves. They practice Hinayana and ignore other people. So, they are attached to calmness and extinction, nirvana, thinking they will enter a state of bliss when nothing is left. But in fact, they will go astray. Why will they go astray? Well, I ignore others because I do not have the ability. Even though I do not arouse the bodhisattva to help others, I am still willing to get rid of my greed, hatred, and ignorance and to practice the holy Dharma. Entering a state of calm and extinction is still regarded as helping myself. And then I can enjoy the bliss of calm and extinction. Is this also wrong? Where do they go wrong? Let me tell you. It is a mistake arising due to their inability to fully understand some of the Buddhist principles. Apart from being too selfish, they also refuse to be with other people and help others. And they refuse to arouse their bodhicitta either. As you know, I already taught you all how to apply an oral pith instruction in the second lecture. You ought to integrate with all sentient beings to become oneness before you can enter the Dharma realm. Why? Because the Dharma realm is a state of oneness. How can you integrate into the state of oneness if you do not get absorbed and dissolved from a dualistic or multiplistic state into the state of oneness? How can you enter the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood? How can you be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence? How can you regain the great ability of perfect enlightenment? You will not be able to restore this kind of great ability, for it can only be restored after entering the state of oneness. If you are unwilling to help other sentient beings, doesn't it mean you are keeping a distance from them? Isn't it a duality, if you are distant from them and only care about yourself? There will be you and sentient beings, which is a dualistic or multiplistic state. It means you will never enter the Dharma realm, and you will never restore your great ability. You may disagree. I can enter one of the 5 heavens of non-returning, to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. Some heavenly realms are actually a pitfall to trap you, of which you must not get out. If you do, you will continue to reincarnate, and you may not be able to get back there again. But if you cannot get out, the so-called happiness inside those heavens is not real happiness. Therefore, it is called going astray, because of their attachment to the bliss of calmness and extinction, nirvana. This is fundamentally a trap, a wrong path. The author did not call it a spiritual crisis. Why? Because spiritual crisis is more unpleasant to hear, while going astray may be more acceptable. So, he called it going astray. It means they will never be able to enter the Dharma realm. Thirdly, erudite and well-informed virtuous teachers go astray, because of being busy with food and clothing. Those who have heard and learned a lot of Buddhist knowledge are called virtuous teachers. They teach many people good knowledge. But they are not dedicated to the Dharma practice, and they only know to teach others. So, they also go astray, as they are too busy working for food and clothing. Why? How can one be liberated from samsara without truly practicing the holy Dharma? So, they still have to continue reincarnation in the 6 realms. This is also called going astray. Why? You have not really entered the correct path, and you are still wandering off the right path. So, it is called going astray. Fourthly, monks who expound on the Buddhist sutras and preach the holy Dharma go astray, because of being obsessed with the field of words. Why is it so? How come you say they are wrong preaching the holy Dharma? How come you say they have gone astray, because of being obsessed with the field of words? Can you explain it? Why is it said that they still have to continue reincarnation in the 6 realms? It is like this. Suppose you expound on the Buddhist sutras and preach the holy Dharma, but you do not have the actual realizations in Dharma practice. I assume you have somewhat practiced the holy Dharma and have sat for meditation. But you do not have realizations, neither have you truly entered that state. As such, you cannot really explain and describe the truths and situations stated in the Buddhist sutras. You can only memorize the Buddhist sutras at most, look them up in the dictionary, and explain them literally. But you do not know how to explain their more profound meaning. Why? Because you have no realizations and have never entered that state. How do you know how to explain it? You do not know what it is. Because of this, you are attached to the description in words instead. You keep looking it up in the dictionary to find out what it means by proof, and what it means by measure. Combined together, they are what realizations mean. You can only explain it like this. realizations mean the measurement of how much one has proved to enter a certain state. This is how the term is explained literally. What exactly are realizations, proof, and measure? Proof means substantiation and verification, whereas measure means scale or measurement. In other words, realizations mean that our Dharma practice must be verified and measured to know the extent we have reached. We call these literal interpretations. And thus one will be trapped in what the text describes, measuring all day long with a ruler on the left and right, and holding the Buddhist sutras to gauge and see to what level one has reached in one's Dharma practice, as well as to what level the others have reached in their Dharma practices. So, one can be trapped by the literal descriptions of the realms and never go beyond the deepest realm described in words. There is no way for one to improve one's own level of Dharma practice. Furthermore, one will even be trapped in the field of words, and can never be liberated from the 6 realms of samsara. You must pay attention to these few words, realizations, in Dharma practice. What exactly do realizations mean? If you have watched our lecture video entitled How to Distinguish Realizations and Supernatural Powers, which was uploaded to our YouTube TV channel in 2015, you will find the explanations in it. Let us first give the literal explanation. Literally, proof means to verify and match. What does it mean? It is to verify and match through your Dharma practice to see what level you have achieved for the things you are practicing. Measure means measurement. Do you have enough to conform to a certain degree of standard measurement? After the measurement, what level have you achieved? There is no explanation for the term realizations in the Buddhist dictionary. Since there is no reference, there is nothing I can copy, and I have to explain it word by word. How should the realizations be explained exactly? Since we practice the holy Dharma aimed at attaining Buddhahood, we must prove to enter the state of oneness of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. So, what is the correct explanation of realizations? What exactly can be called realizations? When it comes to realizations, it is usually referred to something of a much higher level, not the low-level ones. Some say it means one has practiced to the level of being able to fly or bend the iron fork. Some talk about extrasensory perception, or psychic abilities and supernatural powers. None of these is what realizations are about, not at all. The correct explanation of realizations of Dharma practice in Buddhism has to be given in conjunction with the Buddhist holy Dharma. As you know, one has to practice the holy Dharma to prove to enter emptiness, neither existence nor voidness to attain Buddhahood. What is to be proved exactly? It is to prove and verify emptiness, to prove to enter the state of oneness of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. That is, the explanation of realizations has to be given in conjunction with these 2 points. So, what is the correct explanation of realizations? Firstly, measure refers to the degree of understanding and verification of emptiness. The whole interpretation of realizations is to obtain and verify the degree of mastery of emptiness through the actual experience of Dharma practice. If the explanation of realizations does not include the word emptiness, it cannot be called the explanation of realizations. It has to be linked to emptiness. Only then can it be called the proper interpretation of realizations in genuine Buddhism and correct Buddhist holy Dharma. These are what realizations are about. It is not about whether one can fly like a magician. It is absolutely not about those things. I can tell you that other religions could do much better than you with regards to those things. What is the most famous, most central, most important, most valuable, and most precious thing about our Buddhism? It is emptiness. It can allow one to enter the state of oneness. All other religions cannot do it, only Buddhism can. That is the most precious. So, if you explain the realizations in Buddhism without mentioning emptiness, what are you going to talk about then? Are you only going to explain it literally? It is not like people's general perception, thinking that realizations are equal to supernatural powers, being able to fly in the sky and travel underground and making paranormal changes with psychic abilities and supernatural powers. If these are referred to as the manifestation of realizations, it is an extremely wrong understanding. Because ordinary Dharma practitioners also understand this way, 9.9 out of 10 believe in this way. As soon as they hear the name Rinpoche, their eyes will shine, and they will immediately rush to kneel before the Rinpoche. This shows that they do not understand what the Buddhist holy Dharma is. This has led to the decline of Buddhism and the superstition in the power of gods and ghosts. Everyone is thinking that this Rinpoche is very powerful, for he knows how to walk on water and fly. That Rinpoche is very powerful, for he can close the doors remotely and levitate the hairs. These are all psychic abilities and magic tricks. They have nothing to do with the realizations in Buddhism. It is also because these people are greedy for the power of gods and ghosts, and they like it so much that they cannot be liberated from the 6 realms of reincarnation, and are even trapped in the 3 lower realms. As you know, whose psychic abilities are powerful? It is those in the realm of hungry ghosts. If you have been obsessed with them all the time, you will be connecting yourself to the magnetic fields of the 3 lower realms of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. This will accelerate the decline of Buddhism. Buddhism will decline if everyone thinks that these are the realizations, and that Buddhist holy Dharma is about all these supernatural powers. And those teachings that can really help you to enter the Dharma realm in the future will be gone. Okay, let us explain again what realizations are. Since the goal of our Dharma practice is to be liberated from samsara and attain the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment to become a Buddha, it means we need to restore 100% of our realizing and knowing ability without any deviation, so that we can regain our great ability, and that we will not be subject to the traction of anything that leads to reincarnation. This is the ultimate goal of our Buddhism. As for the 3 realms, namely desire realm, form realm, and formless realm, that is to say, no matter whether we are in a realm full of desires, or in high-level heavenly realms with sparse material structures, or even in the formless realm without any material substances left, but only one kind of thought and thinking remained, what are these 3 realms made of? In fact, everything comes from the mind. They are formed by the connections of the common mental consciousnesses of all our sentient beings. You can re-watch a video we have put on YouTube, Everything Comes from the Mind, for the explanation. Since the 3 realms were originally formed by the interweaving of the power of the minds of all sentient beings, it requires the same person who ties the bell to untie it. Why do you all have to reincarnate in the first place? It is because you are entangled with the power of the minds of all sentient beings and are inextricably stuck together, pulling and preventing you from entering the state of oneness to attain Buddhahood, as well as from being liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. And you cannot but stay with them, hold each other back, and continue to suffer together. This is the reason why you all are still wandering in the 3 realms. That is, as long as we can work on our minds and settle our minds so as not to entangle ourselves with other sentient beings, we can then be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. Bingo. It is as simple as that. Why are you making it so complicated? Why do you claim that only by being able to fly in the sky, or letting someone knock your head can you be freed? Therefore, whether it is possible for one to be liberated from the samsara within the 3 realms and to obtain the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment, to attain Buddhahood, is determined by the liberation of the mind and the level of enlightenment. Only the liberation of the mind and the level of enlightenment can be called realizations, not the so-called supernatural powers, witchcraft or magic spells, ghost powers, psychic abilities, or even becoming crazy. These are called low-level stuff. Right? How can you call them realizations? So, realizations do not refer to the level of supernatural powers, but the liberation of the mind and the level of enlightenment. This kind of realizations of intrinsic awareness, or realizations of the mind, is formless, intangible, infinite, and endless, as the state described in the Heart Sutra. It is endless and limitless. The intrinsic awareness, that has been enhanced by proving to enter a certain degree of the state of emptiness, or neither existence nor voidness, is called realized intrinsic awareness. This can then be called realizations. Since the realized intrinsic awareness is formless, intangible, infinite, endless, and has nothing in it, how can I tell if one possesses it? Sentient beings, however, can still get a glimpse of one's degree of understanding, mastery, insight, and realization of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, through the interpretation of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness by these enlightened ones, or whom we call saints. As such, we can see what level and stage they have reached. In other words, it is very simple. If you want to measure whether someone has realizations, ask them to explain the Buddhist Holy Dharma. If they just say one has to be compassionate and merciful without too much greed, hatred and ignorance, that is not enough. What should you ask them to explain? Emptiness. You have to ask them to teach emptiness and then see how they interpret emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Then you will know their levels. Suppose they do not even know how to explain emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. What is neither existence? I don't know. There is nothing at all, I guess. The Heart Sutra also says so. As for nor voidness, why isn't it void? Shouldn't it be empty? The Heart Sutra says everything is empty. Emptiness means there is nothing at all. Everything is empty. If they teach you this way, you will be in big trouble. Why? Because clinging to the idea that everything is empty is a view of nihilism, or the so-called insensate emptiness. In the future, you will definitely be trapped in the formless realm, where there are no material substances, but only thoughts and thinking in it. The true emptiness is a state of balance. It is neither existence nor voidness, where the two aspects are balanced. Neither existence means that all phenomena are temporary, to which you should not be attached. They are not real existence. So, what is the real existence? It is your intrinsic awareness, your perfect enlightenment, and your Dharma nature, that is the real existence. So, it is not that everything is empty. If this person cannot even provide such a simple explanation, it means that their level is very low. Why is your explanation of emptiness so simple? Of course, when you understand something like that, you can interpret it in a very simple way. If you do not understand it, even if you take out all the Buddhist sutras and read them sentence by sentence, people will have almost fallen asleep and become dizzy after you have finished reciting the sutras, because they do not know what you are talking about. If the explanation of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, is so abstruse, who else can practice it? They say everything is empty and practice it wrongly. They also bombard you with a lot of jargon to scare you. Those people do not truly understand emptiness. I can tell you that there are very, very few people who truly understand emptiness, and can explain it in such a straightforward way with only a few sentences, but to the point and the real core. There are none. There is no one who can do so among the people I know. When did I first explain emptiness? It was 18 years ago, if memory serves. It was 17 or 18 years ago when I first explained emptiness. There is a lecture video entitled Emptiness, Neither Existence Nor Voidness that has been uploaded onto YouTube. The lecture was given a long time ago. Before delivering the lecture, I had read all the books about emptiness. I have many books here, comparable to a library. I have many books in my collection, it is just that you cannot see them. After reading all of them, I thought to myself, if I were to explain emptiness to you the way they do, I would surely make you all dizzy after beating around the bush and still not getting to the point. What exactly are these books talking about? They explain emptiness in such a complicated way. I thought to myself, it is really sad. If you make emptiness such a complex subject, no one will be able to practice it successfully. So, I tried to explain emptiness in the most basic way. That was the first lecture. Later, I continued to explain it a little bit more until now. Now that I am finally talking about the Diamond Sutra, I thus explain emptiness again using the Diamond Sutra, so that it will be much clearer. This has to be added up slowly. I have to wait until my disciples get to a certain level before I can explain it in greater depth. Otherwise, they will resist and cannot absorb it if I talk too much in the beginning. After decades of teaching, they are used to what I teach and have begun to understand. Okay, a true Dharma practitioner with realizations means they have a high level of insight and understanding in intrinsic awareness, and can use the simplest words and language to explain the most profound truths. This means that they have a deep understanding of this truth, and so they are capable of explaining it in the simplest way. Therefore, the mastery of Buddhist theories does not lie in the mastery of the Buddhist jargon and knowing how to recite them, nor in being able to recite all Buddhist sutras accurately. What does it mean exactly? It means, firstly, one can explain all Buddhist jargon based on the Dharma nature, that is, the realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment. Secondly, one can interpret all the Buddhist sutras thoroughly based on the Dharma nature, neither existence nor voidness, that is, the intrinsic awareness of the perfect enlightenment. Thirdly, based on the Dharma nature, that is, the realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment, one is able to integrate the Buddhist holy Dharma with daily life and use the experience of one's Dharma nature in life, that is, your intrinsic awareness, or realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment in daily life, to educate sentient beings. To meet these three criteria is to truly master emptiness. One not only knows how to explain it, but also how to apply it, which means that one's realizations must have reached a certain level. Suppose you want to reach the aforementioned 3 levels of understanding and interpretation of the Buddhist holy Dharma, and you can even apply it and teach people how to apply it accurately without bias, and it is not nonsense, but impartial, to the point, correct, and in line with what the Buddhist sutras say, you can only do so by working with the realized intrinsic awareness. If not, what would happen? There would be deviations and inaccuracies. That is how we measure the realizations of others. In the 54th issue of The Lake of Lotus, The Profound Abstruseness of Life and Death, The Meaning of Near-Death Experiences, 54, discusses and explains how to distinguish realizations and supernatural powers, and what the realized intrinsic awareness means. You can find it on our website. Are there any characteristics of Dharma practitioners with realizations? Let me explain it now. A Dharma practitioner with realizations will definitely not only perform Dharma ceremonies and empowerments. No, they will not. This is especially true for those who practice the Great Perfection. They will not do these. They will undoubtedly preach the holy Dharma based on the Buddhist sutras and teach sentient beings how to train their minds. We have spoken of mind training for so long. What is mind training exactly? Does it mean that we no longer have greed, hatred, and ignorance? Let us explain it now. Why? Because the focus of the Dharma practice lies in mind training. Without explaining what mind training is, you will not know what to practice since mind training is so crucial. In fact, mind training is the core to the success of all our Dharma practice. It is the essential core. What is mind training exactly? It can be divided into 3 levels. Firstly, it should be able to free the mind from the shackles of greed, hatred, and ignorance. This is the most basic first level. It will prevent you from being reborn in the 3 lower realms. As long as you achieve this level, you can have a fruit, which is a very good retribution, such that you will not take rebirth in the realm of hells, hungry ghosts, or animals. Secondly, it enables you to restore the great ability of your mind. This is the second level of mind training. For example, someone teaches you some visualization abilities, or trains your mind to develop the ability to create. This is called the visualization ability. How can this help you? Because they teach you to visualize what it is like in the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss, and what the 3 saints of the West look like. To visualize them means to establish a link with them. Such visualization, or the ability of your mind to create, enables you to use a dominant way to get to the Western Land or Pure Land of ultimate bliss more easily. However, it requires you to achieve the first level of mind training to free your mind from the shackles of greed, hatred, and ignorance. That is, one must observe the precepts. Without observing the precepts, how can one be free from the shackles of greed, hatred, and ignorance? In other words, if you do not observe the precepts, you will not do well at the first level of freeing yourself from the shackles of greed, hatred, and ignorance. Your foundation will not be laid well. If you visualize without a good foundation, I can tell you, you will have an even worse outcome. Because you have a great deal of greed, hatred, and ignorance, and your karmic creditors know that you are fond of the Pure Land of ultimate bliss and the 3 saints of the West, they will change into those appearances to lure you into their traps. You will definitely fall into their traps, because your foundation of the first level is not well laid. Do not think it must be good to be able to visualize. No. You must first do well at the first level before you can do well at the second. If you can do it, you can be reborn in the 3 upper realms, the realms of humans, asuras, or heavens. Asuras also belong to the realms of heavens, but of low-level ones. The third level is the highest one. If you can cultivate to enable your mind to enter the state of oneness, you can enter the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood, being liberated from the shackles of samsara forever, and enjoying the infinite Dharma bliss forever. It turns out that mind training is about these 3. It is not what you said that we need to be compassionate without greed, hatred, and ignorance. That is just the most basic first level. There are still the second and the third levels to go. If you cannot even do well at the first level while claiming to be training your mind every day, you are deceiving yourself. But the question is, what are many gurus teaching to do for the second level? Visualization with forms or appearances. They teach how to visualize a pure land of ultimate bliss, the appearance of Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, or the looks of the 3 saints of the West. All these come with the forms or appearances, so they are called abiding in notions. It is dangerous if only the methods with forms or appearances are taught without incorporating emptiness. Why is it dangerous? Because your karmic creditors will manifest into the looks of what you really want to see to lure you into their traps. How can you avoid falling into their traps? The guru also needs to incorporate the teachings of neither existence nor voidness, and those methods, without forms and appearances. The 2 methods need to be taught together. The first point is to free the mind from the shackles of greed, hatred, and ignorance and work with the precepts. Suppose the guru teaches it well, and you also do it well. In that case, the guru can then guide you in how to visualize, not only visualizing the appearance, but also incorporating emptiness. Then you will be safe and not be caught by your karmic creditors. That is why. As for the third point, if one's mind can enter the state of oneness, is it okay not to practice the second point? Is it okay to only practice the first and the third together while doing well in coordinating both? Of course, it is. It is okay to practice only the first and the third. It is not okay if one only practices the second, or only the third. It is okay to practice the first and the third together. If only practicing the first and the second together, you can only be reborn in the 3 upper realms at most, or even better, you can go to the 5 heavens of non-returning and be liberated from samsara. But you cannot enter the state of oneness. You must include the third to be able to do that. Therefore, without forms and appearances, that is, that emptiness, neither existence nor voidness without any forms and appearances, is to help you train your mind to enter the state of oneness so that you can have the opportunity to attain Buddhahood. What does the first oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions, belong to? The second oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra is not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. There is the addition of one more thing, mind. What is it? Should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions belongs to the neither existence aspect of the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, while not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind belongs to the nor voidness aspect of the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Therefore, the 2 oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra are very important, the core of the core. They are also what we have been explaining until now and are still explaining. Any Dharma propagator with realizations will teach and explain Buddhist holy Dharma based on the words in the Buddhist sutras while incorporating the experience gained from actual practice. They are unlike some people out there these days, who talk about feng shui arrangements or formations, extrasensory perception, or signs seen in a dream. Their so-called Dharma teachings are not based on the citations of the Buddhist sutras at all. It is unclear where they got it from, possibly just themselves. No, it would not be like this. A person with realizations will use their own experience to explain the Buddhist holy Dharma, but they will also know how to quote the words in the Buddhist sutras in their explanations. What does it mean? It means that there is verification, as well as proof. Proof means that their explanations are based on and can be substantiated by the Buddhist sutras. Verification means that their explanations come from their own realizations, based on the experience gained from actual practice, and in conjunction with the Buddhist sutras. As such, there is verification as well as proof. As such, their teachings will be very in-depth and thorough. That is, this is one of the characteristics of a Dharma practitioner with realizations. Their Dharma teachings will be very in-depth and thorough, with a focus, and hitting the nail on the head. And they can explain the profound in simple terms without perplexing you. Their teachings will be absolutely correct, not an explanation that is all wrong. This is because they comprehend and understand what the states described in the Buddhist sutras are through the experience in their actual practices, so they can explain those principles clearly. One who does not have experience in actual practices is one without realizations. What would be one's Dharma teachings like if one does not have realizations and experience in actual practice? They would become purely a literal explanation. Proof means verification, and measure means measurement. And that is it. There is no further explanation. It means to measure your own level. That is all. That is the end of the explanation. What more else is there to say, right? It would be very easy to cause situations such as misunderstanding, misleading, being trapped in the field of words, and not knowing how to apply. So, one will know what level a Dharma practitioner has reached through their explanation of Buddhist holy Dharma. So, do not rush over to someone as soon as you hear their title is Rinpoche. You should ask them to explain the Buddhist holy Dharma. Do not ask them to explain something too simple. Only by asking them to explain the emptiness can you measure what level they have reached. If someone claims to be a Dharma practitioner or a Dharma propagator, but never explains the Buddhist holy Dharma, that is, they do not allow others to measure them, or they simply do not understand it themselves. In other words, this is a Dharma practitioner who practices the Dharma blindly or indiscriminately. They just claim themselves to be excellent in their Dharma practices, after having sat for meditation on a remote mountain for several years. They claim to be very powerful, because they can sit still for a long time. Does being able to sit still mean that one is very powerful? Does sitting still, like a stone, mean that one can arouse one's intrinsic awareness? Far from it. Intrinsic awareness comes from the comprehension of emptiness, the comprehension and realizations of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Sitting still and quietly means that it is easier for one to comprehend it. It does not mean that one can reach such a state naturally just by sitting still. Of course not. Some people said they had seen an extraordinary person who could sit for hours without moving at all. So, they thought the person must be amazing. It is useless even if you can sit still until you become a rock. If you cannot even understand or explain emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, I can tell you that it is utterly useless even if you sit until the seas run dry and the rocks crumble. It is futile even if you can sit still like a boulder. And it will be very easy for you to go astray. You may go astray and enter the formless realm while sitting for meditation, which may happen very fast. If this kind of person is allowed to teach others, then the other people will also go astray like them. It is called practicing the holy Dharma blindly, which is very dangerous. In mild cases, one may fall into the lower rebirths in the 3 lower realms, that is, the realms of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. In severe cases, one may end up in a state of madness of spiritual crisis. Mild means you do not know it until after death, while severe means the manifestation will appear right away, in which the person will lose their mind like going crazy. So, we need to know how we can obtain some knowledge or measure the degree of Dharma practice. There are some methods. What are they? The first method is called pratyaksa, or pratyakaprama. What is it? It is to use one's own body and mind, that is, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, through one's Dharma practice, to directly perceive in person and to realize and know before the eyes a state as it truly is, as well as to verify that state using an accurate measure and even prove to enter it. Therefore, it is also called pratyakaprama, realizations, or direct perception. That is, one has to verify it as it truly is using an accurate measure, through one's own Dharma practice, a personal experience, and a kind of intrinsic awareness that is directly present before the eyes. It will not exceed what it should be with something extra being added, or things that are purely one's own guesses. It will not be like this. It will be as it truly is, as how much it measures, and as evident and present before your eyes. It is obtained from your own personal experience. These are called pratyaksa. The second method is anumana, or anumaprama, which means using similar situations to understand and measure the level by means of comparison and inference. It is not through one's own direct perception or personal experience, but through comparison and reasoning to understand that level. This is called anumana. The third method is agama or gamapramna, which is based on the records in the Buddhist sutras, or the works of some great Dharma practitioners in tantras of esoteric Buddhism. Some of these are words of the Buddhas in Vajrayana, which we also call tantras. Or it may be the words and teachings of some saints and great Dharma practitioners, which we use to understand and measure the level. We call it agama, also called gamapramna, ptagama, or sabda. We ordinary sentient beings rely on agama, for comparison, to know what level of the holy fruit other Dharma practitioners, or we ourselves have attained. In other words, we make comparisons based on what the Buddhist sutras describe and what the great Dharma practitioners write, and then we make inferences to guess, just guessing, the level that person has realized. The first one, pratyaksa, means one has truly realized up to that level, but only one will know. The second and the third are based on our guessing as bystanders. But guessing also requires some rationale, and these are the rationale. And there are still some other things we need to cooperate with, not only based on these. First, hearing. We have to hear more Buddhist teachings, read more Buddhist sutras, and listen more to the words and teachings of great Dharma practitioners, so that we can arouse a kind of wisdom. Without the wisdom acquired through hearing, it is impossible to apply Agama. Second, contemplation. After hearing, we have to contemplate it in depth. Are there any questions that we may come up with? The more you ponder over it, the more questions there will be. The more questions you have, the more you seek answers, and the more you benefit from resolving your questions. As such, you will develop the wisdom acquired through contemplation. After I hear it, many question marks will be raised when I am contemplating it. The solution to each question mark will become the wisdom in my thinking. This is called the wisdom acquired through contemplation. Third, cultivation. After understanding it, you must put your Dharma practice into action in order to prove or verify whether the things you have heard and contemplated are true, not just listening to others. If you have cultivated and verified it, the result will be the wisdom acquired through cultivation. You need these three kinds of wisdom to know how to judge whether a person has realizations. If you do not have these three things, forget about it. You must have them. Therefore, Agama belongs to the wisdom acquired through hearing, while Anumana belongs to the wisdom acquired through contemplation. After contemplating, comparing speculatively, and reasoning, you finally come to a conclusion about what level that person, or you yourself, have reached in Dharma practice. This is the wisdom acquired through contemplation. What is the third one pratyaksa called then? It is wisdom acquired through cultivation. You have indeed reached that level in your Dharma practice, and you can already verify it. Still, you need to rely on hearing, contemplation, and cultivation to make these three kinds of pramanas into your measurement methods. Otherwise, what are you going to measure with? How do you measure the level of Dharma practice? It is necessary to have the above-mentioned conditions before you can measure it. How do you obtain knowledge? You can only gain knowledge via hearing, contemplation, and cultivation. Well, the second Anumana and the third Agama are referred to as teachings. What is pratyaksa called? We call it realizations. Both teachings and realizations must be possessed simultaneously, called being well versed in both teachings, study aspect, and realizations, practice aspect. If this person has both the qualities of teaching and realization abilities, they can definitely be a guru. Is it okay to have only realizations, but no teachings? I am afraid not. I do not know whether your realizations are real, because there is no basis for them and no proof. I do not know if there is any basis for your so-called proof. If not, there is no proof. What should it be based on? Of course, it should be based on the Buddhist sutras. If not, it means you do not have teachings, and that is called practicing the holy Dharma blindly. You really do not know whether what comes out from practicing Dharma blindly can be considered realizations or not. Therefore, it is necessary to have both teachings and realizations. Only can it be called with basis and proof. What do we call it if one only knows teachings, with no realizations? The mere talk of eating will not satisfy one's hunger. You talk about eating all the time, but still feel hungry, because you do not really eat. Of course, you will still feel hungry, because you are all talk and no action. It is very easy to get trapped in the wrong way in the field of words. Possessing both teachings and realizations is like a bird with two wings, or a car with two wheels so it can move well. It is very difficult to run a car with only one wheel. They need to complement each other to achieve the goal easily. That is, only a person who possesses both the qualities of teaching and realization abilities can be a guru. There will only be hope for success if you follow these people to practice the holy Dharma. Suppose you follow the person who practices the Dharma blindly, or knows nothing about either Dharma practice or the teachings. If you follow them, they will deceive you, saying they had a very powerful dream last night and they could shut the gates remotely. So, you will get into big trouble if you follow them. It will be tragic. Therefore, we have to understand what Venerable Milarepa said. Monks who expound on the Buddhist sutras and preach the holy Dharma go astray, because of being obsessed with the field of words. It means that if you do not have realizations of Dharma practice, yet you are explaining the sutras and preaching the holy Dharma, you will make yourself and others lost in the field of words. So, it is a big drawback if the teaching is based purely on theory without actual practice experience. Okay. So, how do we distinguish between true and false gurus or Dharma preachers? Are there any ways to distinguish them? It is very easy, and I will teach you a method. Firstly, through a Dharma practitioner's explanation of the Buddhist holy Dharma, you will know the person's level of Dharma practice. It does not matter if they claim to be able to fly in the sky, or even fly before you for you to see. Tell them you are not watching a magic show, or a ghost story now. It is not about how marvelous their magic show is. You should ask them to explain the Buddhist holy Dharma. They will show their true colors once they explain the holy Dharma. If you want someone to show their true colors, it is very easy. Just ask them to explain the Buddhist holy Dharma. Is it okay to read their works? I am not sure if it is okay. Some people, a few of Sojil's closest disciples and the key members of the entire group, have come out to criticize online. They said, the commentaries and many contents of the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, the book that Sojil published, were written by we disciples ourselves and shown to him afterwards. He then published the book. A lot of its content was gathered by us, and he was actually not the author of that book. So, it is not okay to just read someone's works, for they can hire a ghostwriter. I once received a complaint from someone who was a translator of Tibetan in mainland China. He claimed some famous guru had stolen his work. I asked, how was it stolen? He said, that guru asked me to translate a book written in Tibetan. After I finished the translation, he didn't pay me. Then he defrauded me of a few more translated works, claiming that he would review them for me and check if there were errors. So, I gave them all to him. He then took the books, published them, and claimed he translated them himself. He stole and robbed me of my works. So, just reading someone's works is not accurate. How can it be accurate? How can you tell if a work is plagiarized, ghostwritten, stolen, or robbed? So, what can you do? Ask them to explain it to you. Just ask them to explain it to you. They will readily show their true colors if they speak directly in front of you. You ask them questions, and they will have to respond to you. Any Dharma practitioner who does not explain Buddhist holy Dharma cannot be considered a true Dharma propagator. Anyone who only does empowerments and Dharma events is one who leads people into superstitions. They will make sentient beings have more greed, hatred, and ignorance. This will jeopardize the propagation of the Buddhist holy Dharma and the wisdom life of sentient beings. This is a behavior that violates the precepts and will have evil retributions. Why? It is stated in the chapter on Bodhisattvas, 10 Abodes of the Avatamsaka Sutra, Volume 8. What is a bodhisattva? Even if I just make a wish now to help sentient beings to attain Buddhahood together, I can already be called a bodhisattva by arousing this bodhicitta. The chapter on Bodhisattvas, 10 Abodes states that you must cultivate to reach the 10th bhumi before you can receive empowerment. You must attain the 10th level in terms of the stability of your nature of the mind, not only making a wish to cultivate the bodhicitta, to be a bodhisattva. There are 10 levels. Additionally, in the chapter of the names of sages and holies of the upper volume of the Sutra of the Garland of a Bodhisattva's primary karmas, it is stated that the 10th of Bodhisattvas, 10 abodes, is called the abode of empowerment. One must cultivate his or her nature of the mind to that level before accepting empowerment. The nature of the mind training requires one to pass 9 levels to reach the 10th before one can get rid of the interferences of greed, hatred, and ignorance and accept empowerment. This is because empowerment is a kind of certification. Otherwise, those who receive empowerment will get entangled with evil karma because they deceive Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It will cause unnecessary harm to oneself. It is no good to lose more because of greed. Therefore, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni set up this rule in different Buddhist sutras. It is actually used to protect Dharma practitioners. Why was this rule written this way? Why was it not level 1, level 2, or level 3 but level 10? One has to pass 9 levels to be eligible for empowerment. Why is it so strict? It is to protect you. You will get into trouble if you receive empowerment carelessly, because empowerment is a kind of certification. There is visualization involved when people impart the rituals to you to practice. If you have not done well in the previous nice levels, you will be connected to some bad places. The more you practice it, the quicker you will get into trouble. The more you practice it, the more likely you will fall into the traps of your karmic creditors. So, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni set these rules to protect you. If you do not follow his teachings, you will be digging your own grave. The rule must be obeyed by the person who confers empowerment, as well as the person who accepts empowerment. Otherwise, both will harm themselves and others because of greed, hatred, and ignorance. Therefore, if you want to distinguish between the true and false gurus, you cannot rely solely on their lineage systems, or the guru who certifies them. One cannot simply say he or she is someone's incarnation, and used to be very powerful. That was in the past. Bodhisattvas have delusions before entering the womb. Whether you can restore your memory in this life and explain the genuine Buddhist holy Dharma is proof of whether you can succeed in your Dharma practice and teach others. What is the use if you cannot even explain Buddhist holy Dharma, but keep claiming to be somebody's incarnation? Anyone can find 10 or 8 people at any time to certify that they are the incarnation of a particular great Rinpoche. How can we tell which is real and which is fake? You can tell from the Buddhist holy Dharma they preach. You say that the guru who certifies you is great. It does not mean that you are also great. The guru certifies you because they hope you can explain Buddhist holy Dharma to save sentient beings. They do not wish that you continue to be superstitious and lead sentient beings into the wrong path of superstition and fall into it. You must determine whether this person is a real guru and Dharma propagator through their methods of Dharma propagation, the content of their Dharma teachings, and their writings. If the mind-nature training of the person who receives empowerment has yet to reach the 10th level of the Bodhisattva's 10 abodes, and you certify them by conferring empowerment to them, you will exhaust this person's virtuous merits. Do you know that such certification requires virtuous merits? If you have not reached this level, and have not accumulated enough merits, but already used the merits by receiving this certification, you will exhaust your virtuous merits. The result will not be as simple as being caught by your karmic creditors. You are literally going to die soon. Why? The virtuous merits are gone. How can one's life expectancy still not be shortened? How can one's health still not be diminished? Many other basic necessities, such as clothing, food, shelter, and transportation, will be reduced as well. So, do not act recklessly. We call these losing more because of greed. And it will aggravate the greed, hatred, and ignorance of the nature of the mind, which will make you fall into the traps of your karmic creditors. It will increase the possibility of these people who receive empowerment to fall into the 3 lower realms, hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. And the person who confers empowerment also has not observed clearly whether the nature of the mind of the person who receives empowerment has already reached the 10th level of the Bodhisattva's 10 abodes. Yet they have already gone ahead with the certification for that person. This is definitely deceptive behavior, which is a violation of the major precepts. What precept have they violated? It is called the seventh downfall of revealing secrets to immature sentient beings. As described in esoteric teachings, one will fall into the Vajra hell by doing so. This is a very serious matter. In their own Dharma practices, it is also very easy for them to go astray because of falling into the state of madness. I am trying to explain here why some people will go crazy during their Dharma practices. It is because they have done something wrong and accumulated a lot of evil karma. Their nature of the mind is awful. Their behaviors are terrible, and the way they preach the holy Dharma is also inappropriate. After accumulating these evil karmas, they will go crazy. And they will go crazy during their Dharma practices. Or if they do not practice the holy Dharma, they will not be crazy temporarily. But the higher level you practice, the quicker you will become crazy. Why? Because your personal conduct is not correct. So, remember, the focus of Dharma practice lies in mind training. You will know how to distinguish between true and false gurus, or Dharma propagators, simply by looking at how they teach you to train your mind. Do they teach you mind training? Needless to say, it must be incorrect if they do not do so. If they do, it depends on what level they teach. If a guru only teaches you the first level, only teaches you to be compassionate, and get rid of greed, hatred, and ignorance, not to be jealous and arrogant, not to always doubt others, and things like these, they are an ordinary guru. If they also teach you how to restore the ability of your mind and how to visualize, but only teach the Dharma practices of abiding in notions, without teaching emptiness, they are an intermediate guru. If they teach you emptiness and how to enter the state of oneness, and they are capable of explaining emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, they belong to the highest class, most advanced level, and the most sublime gurus. Suppose a guru only does empowerments and Dharma events without explaining the Buddhist holy Dharma, and they lead people into superstition and confer empowerments to strangers. When you do not know someone, you do not know whether the person has practiced to the 10th abode of a bodhisattva, do you? These are all wrong, because of the lack of hearing, contemplation, and cultivation. They themselves lack hearing, contemplation, and cultivation, so they do not know this is wrong. Even if they do have hearing, contemplation, and cultivation, they do not know this kind of evil fruit will harm both themselves and others, or they may do it against their conscience. Also, they cause sentient beings to only know superstition and empowerments without hearing, contemplation, and cultivation. These all belong to incorrect gurus. Remember, the foundation of any Dharma practice method must have the first level of mind training to free the mind from the shackles of greed, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, arrogance, and doubt. This is the most fundamental. It must be there. If not, it is useless to practice anything. No matter what level of the mind training is, one has to work with the two oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra. The first is, should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions, and the second is not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. Well, Venerable Milarepa also stated, bhikshus with majestic appearance go astray, because of hypocritical majesty. What does it mean? Someone's appearance is solemn, but they have no wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation. They look impressive, but lack real worth. Their clothes are gorgeous, and they walk very steadily. They will not be like ordinary people, who may not walk straight and deviate to one side, or may even slip when walking in slippery places. No, they will not. With every move, they will walk regularly, beautifully, majestically, and dignifiedly. In a nutshell, you will think they are great whenever you see them. Ordinary people are obsessed with whether the guru dresses beautifully, whether their Dharma robes are gorgeous, whether their looks are impressive and dignified, and whether they walk elegantly. All these refer to their majesty. They even eat in a relatively calm manner, and look especially magnificent when they eat. I can tell you that one who only has the outer appearance, but not wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation, will still continue reincarnations in the 6 realms. In addition, such a guru is a hypocritical guru who will go astray. What does it mean by hypocritical? Hypocritical means that they do not use the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation to teach their disciples, but focus only on using various means of attraction involving external appearances, rituals, casual empowerments, and false blessings, instead of really teaching the Buddhist holy Dharma, to stir up the greed, hatred, and ignorance of sentient beings. For example, they teach sentient beings that they will be better off by putting up a feng shui array. They all use such soliciting techniques to fulfill their own vanity to become a guru. They all emphasize feng shui, numerology, fortune-telling, etc. All these are not genuine Buddhist holy Dharma. So, why are there still so many Rinpoches who offer a lot of casual empowerments to strangers? This is because they are eager for shortcuts. This is the fastest way to attract a large number of believers. Where there are casual empowerments, there will be hundreds of people attending. That is the fastest shortcut. If they give Dharma talks, very few people will come. The attraction is not great and fast enough. So, they have done so much to pursue the shortcut, which means that they themselves have not cultivated well with a lot of greed, hatred, and ignorance. They have not cultivated well even at the first level of mind training. Of course, they only need to advertise the event in the newspapers or on Facebook for strangers to come for the empowerments. One reason is that they do not understand and lack the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation. So, they do not know. Another reason is that they do know, but still do it for the sake of shortcuts. That will be even worse. They have no intention to spend time studying or practicing the holy Dharma, and they do not want to show their cards and be found out that they do not understand Buddhist holy Dharma, or they do not want to reveal the depth of their Dharma knowledge foundation. They fear that after they have finished explaining the holy Dharma, you will be able to measure their levels. They will be in big trouble, then. These also show that they do not understand the genuine Buddhist holy Dharma, and they will not abide by the precepts either. These are a manifestation of greed and ignorance. It will be dangerous to follow these gurus in Dharma practice. Well, why is it said that bhikshus with majestic appearance go astray, because of hypocritical majesty? These are precisely the reasons. Another question is why there is still a large number of believers participating in this kind of casual empowerment. Where there is demand, there will always be supply. And where there is supply, there will naturally be demand. This is an interactive function in terms of causes and effects. This is because their greed, hatred, and ignorance have been stirred up. Empowerment has been described as absolutely superb and miraculous, such that people will have lots of benefits after receiving empowerment, such as increased wealth, increased longevity, and increased blessings. Everything will be increased. And all obstacles will be removed as well. So, they will think that there is no need to practice the holy Dharma. Without paying any price, they can be blessed and certified. They can also learn certain Dharma methods and practice the rituals, and they can obtain qualifications. They do not know that this is practicing the holy Dharma blindly, which will get them into trouble even faster. They are unaware of this. They do not care whether their nature of the mind is suitable for accepting these teachings, and they do not know whether these will bring danger to themselves. These are a manifestation of greed and ignorance, and in fact, also a kind of hypocrisy. This is what Milarepa called hypocrisy. In addition, he also stated, the great yogis go astray because of falling into the state of madness. This is what happens when we practice the holy Dharma to a higher level. What is a yogi? Yoga means correspondence. If you practice esoteric Buddhism and are a great yogi, it means you are already a great Dharma practitioner. Why will you go mad when you practice to an advanced level? Why will you go astray? It is because you practice the holy Dharma blindly, which will make you go astray. You also have an insufficient understanding of emptiness and are superstitious about supernatural powers. It is like Chogyam Trungpa's chief disciple and lineage holder, who had AIDS, but thought that he would be blessed by talking to his guru and informing that he was ill and the disease would disappear. So, he continued to infect others as if it was none of his business. He thought his guru was able to cure him. Wasn't he shirking the responsibility to his guru? In other words, these are called superstitions in supernatural powers. There is no wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation. He had neither the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation, nor the wisdom of common sense. Anyone with common medical knowledge will know that it is impossible that someone with AIDS will be free from the disease after talking to others. These demonstrate that they do not even have the wisdom of ordinary people. So, the more they practice the holy Dharma, the more they will fall into a state of madness. The more they do it, the crazier they become. So, they still need to continue reincarnations in the 6 realms. What is the disadvantage of practicing the holy Dharma blindly, without the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation? The more you practice the holy Dharma, the crazier you will become, just like the chief disciple of Chogyam Trungpa. The more he practiced, the crazier he became. What is meant by practicing the holy Dharma blindly? It means one does not follow the guidance of a guru, who is experienced, or with realizations in one's Dharma practice. This is called practicing the holy Dharma blindly, because there is no guru of such a level to teach you. Secondly, there is no wisdom acquired from Buddhist scriptures through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation for comparison. There will be no such wisdom if one does not listen to the holy Dharma, read the Buddhist sutras, contemplate, and verify them. There is no one with experience and realizations to teach you either. And you yourself also do not read the Buddhist sutras and ponder over them. Neither do you have the foundation of mind training. You have none of these. So this is what will happen. Many people think that as long as they have received empowerment, learned the rituals of the Dharma practice, and worked hard to follow the practice, they are bound to come to fruition. There is no need for mind training, and there is no need to have teachings, or observe the precepts. These are called practicing the holy Dharma blindly. Let me tell you that 99.9% of the esoteric Buddhism practitioners today belong to this 4th category. They all think that it is sufficient as long as there is a practice ritual. Without a guru who is experienced and has realizations to teach you, it means that you will lack the assistance of realizations. Without the wisdom acquired from Buddhist scriptures through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation, it means you will have no assistance of Anumana and Agama, or Sabda. Without the foundation of mind training, it means you do not have any foundation, like building a house on floating sand. You are doomed to fail. If you only receive empowerment and then just follow the ritual text to practice and recite, it means you do not have any assistance. Firstly, it is unclear whether the empowerment is according to Dharma. It is simply advertised in newspapers and promoted on Facebook. That person does not even know you and cannot say your name. How do they know whether you have reached the 10th abode of a bodhisattva? It means that you get the empowerment by means of fraudulence. Yes, it is not according to Dharma. It is fraudulent, and with it comes along evil retributions. How can you possibly still succeed in practicing the ritual? Of course, you will not be successful. The connection will not be successful. Where will you be connected to? You will be connected to the realms of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals laid for you by your karmic creditors. You will have those connections because you have violated the precepts. If you practice the rituals without the assistance of the above three, that is, a guru with realizations, the assistance of Anumana and Agama Asabda, the foundation of mind training, and your empowerment is also fake, you are definitely practicing the holy Dharma blindly. You are doomed to fail with the wrong connections. Moreover, you will indulge yourself because you do not abide by the precepts. You keep violating the precepts. If you observe the precepts, you will not accept any empowerment casually. If the empowerment is not according to Dharma and you still accept it, you have already violated the precepts. In other words, you do not observe the precepts and indulge your own behavior. You will quickly fall into the three lower realms, hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. So, be very careful about this. Venerable Milarepa also said, great Dharma practitioners, who have been practicing for many years go astray, because of the sudden arousal of the view of nihilism. How come someone who has practiced the holy Dharma for many years will also go astray? What is the view of nihilism? The view of nihilism is that everything is empty. The Heart Sutra says that everything is empty and there is nothing. So one thinks that since everything is empty, nothing is left, including one's realizing and knowing. This is called the view of nihilism. As if being chopped by a knife, there will be nothing left. It does not matter how many years you have practiced the holy Dharma. If you suddenly come up with the idea that emptiness means nothing is left, as described in the Heart Sutra, and you believe you are right, you will then go astray. You will be wrong in your Dharma practice, and need to continue reincarnation in the 6 realms. So, Venerable Milarepa said, if one has no knowledge and lacks wisdom eyes. If there is no knowledge, what knowledge did he refer to? The knowledge about the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation. He meant if those kinds of wisdom are lacking, all kinds of fallacies and wrong ways will arise. One will definitely go the wrong way, and go astray, that is, end up in a spiritual crisis. Therefore, the 3 kinds of wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation are the eyes of wisdom we must possess, the knowledge we must have, so that we will not go astray. So, you must keep in mind that these are the 3 reasons for spiritual crisis, also called going astray, as I explained before. You must be extra careful. Hence, all these states of madness, such as drunken madness, meat madness, killing madness, sexual madness, babbling madness, and the madness of violating all precepts are all called going astray. Okay, back to the question of my disciple. How do we judge whether this guru or teacher has realizations? This has already been taught just now. Or, if it is difficult to distinguish a guru with realizations, are there some standards of behaviors that can regulate them? Are there some precepts that can regulate them? I can tell you that the behavior of all Dharma practitioners, be they beginners or of the highest level, even those who have already attained Buddhahood, must conform to the standard of precept. This is absolutely necessary. The only difference is that the behavior of ordinary practitioners, who do not understand Buddhist holy Dharma, is somewhat different from that of those who have practiced the holy Dharma to an advanced level, or even have attained Buddhahood. Because those who have practiced the holy Dharma to an advanced level, or who have attained Buddhahood, do not need to constantly think about observing the precepts consciously. Anything they do will naturally conform to the precepts. It is revealed naturally. Therefore, there is a term called precepts of intrinsic nature. It means that all behaviors that someone naturally reveals are pure and clean behaviors. The so-called Dharma practitioners who exhibit crazy behaviors are all signs of a spiritual crisis. Of course, another possibility is that they think that imitating these crazy behaviors means they have reached the highest level of Dharma practice. These are all scammers. We call them deliberately mystifying. Whether they have truly gone into a spiritual crisis, or they are scammers, they are not worthy of us ordinary Dharma practitioners to admire or learn from. We must be absolutely vigilant against this situation. You should be vigilant. Do not be like Chogyam Trungpa's chief disciple, who was infected with AIDS and lacked even the slightest common medical knowledge, believing that he could get rid of the disease immediately by talking to someone. There is no reason why he did not even have this basic common sense. You all, too, must have this basic common sense. When you see them all going crazy, you should be vigilant, not admire them and then indulge in the same behaviors by learning from them. There is no reason to do that. Therefore, those responsible Dharma practitioners in the past would practice the holy Dharma in remote mountains, because they did not want to suffer from unnecessary causes and effects. If they went crazy, no one would see them in remote mountains, and they would not affect others and have evil retributions. They would not plant an evil cause that led to evil consequences. It would only be them who went crazy. They usually practiced the holy Dharma in remote mountains. Apart from avoiding harassment, they also tried to avoid showing any crazy behavior to others in the event of spiritual crises, so that they would not affect other sentient beings and the propagation of the Buddhist holy Dharma. These were very responsible behavior. Okay. My disciple also asked, why did those American disciples still hold a pure view of their guru despite that he had already gone mad like that? Some people even questioned whether it was right to criticize their guru Sojal. I am wondering, was it because Sojal is a guru with realizations, so they felt that being beaten was a blessing and his craziness was some form of teaching? You must know that a Dharma practitioner who truly possesses realizations will not exhibit these crazy behaviors. If they exhibit crazy behaviors, it proves that they have no realizations, but have encountered a spiritual crisis. It does not mean that they have realizations. Everyone must be clear about this. These disciples who have been fooled and harmed still harbored the so-called pure view towards the crazy behaviors of their so-called realized guru. This is owing to their lack of the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation. They thought that being beaten was a blessing because they felt that after being beaten, they would have pure-mindedness, and could attain Buddhahood without much Dharma practice. Attaining Buddhahood does not mean one needs to have pure-mindedness, such that one will show no signs of greed, hatred, and ignorance, and even be very pleased despite being beaten by others. That is not called pure-mindedness, that is called sheer ignorance and naivety. The true attainment of Buddhahood depends on whether your realizing and knowing ability has sufficient crystal clarity, is thorough and unbiased enough, and is 100% of perfect enlightenment. In fact, the factor that enables you to attain Buddhahood is emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. It is a misunderstanding of the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation to believe that one can comprehend emptiness after being physically abused. This is actually a kind of ignorance, not the so-called pure view. As a responsible guru with wisdom, they should use their wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation to teach their disciples, instead of using those crazy behaviors, or the ones with greed, hatred, and ignorance as a teaching method to exploit their disciples. This is known as the emperor's new clothes. But the disciples are willing to put in money to buy suffering. As you make your bed, so you must lie on it. Next, my disciple also asked, esoteric Buddhism has some advanced Dharma practices, which may make people crazy if they continue to practice them. Is it because the correctness of Sojal's crazy behaviors was questionable? Did he become crazy because of the Dharma practice? Was that normal? Or was it supposed to be like this? He even had a certain degree of influence, such that some well-known Rinpoches supported him, and thus his American disciples still hold a pure view towards him. What are these all about? I will answer your questions now. The real advanced Dharma practices of esoteric Buddhism all involve emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Those are the real advanced practices. They will definitely not make you crazy, but will only enable you to enter the state of oneness to attain Buddhahood. Crazy behaviors are not equal to advanced Dharma practices. Do not get it wrong. This is nothing but pointing to a deer and calling it a horse, claiming that anyone who practices the holy Dharma to the point of insanity is about to attain Buddhahood, or that they are high-level Dharma practitioners. These are all Dharma practitioners who encounter a spiritual crisis because they are not up to par. Esoteric Buddhism does not have these crazy advanced Dharma practices. What is the highest level of Dharma practice? It is emptiness, neither existence nor voidness of the great perfection. These are just ordinary Dharma practitioners who do not understand the situation and make wrong judgments. Sojol's crazy behaviors that harmed a great number of people are the result of a misunderstanding of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, and extreme greed, hatred, and ignorance. It is not a correct Dharma practice method at all. His behaviors are definitely not a sign of realizations. His words had some influence because most people do not understand what the actual Dharma practice and mind training are, added to which people are obsessed with the power of blessings and the mystery of esoteric Buddhism. How mysterious can it be? In fact, it is something very straightforward. Turning it into something mysterious is nothing but self-deception, which is why people get influenced by his words. They were willing to be abused and suffer these pains. After suffering from these pains, they claimed their karmic obscurations were already cleared. He is blessing me, so my nature of the mind will become pure. It should be said that their nature of the mind had become more foolish and ignorant. My disciple also asked, why are some well-known Rinpoches still supporting him? It is for their mutual support and common interests. This has been explained in the previous session. If they do not support him, do not support Sojol, how can they still use empowerment to deceive people in the future? They do not need to explain Buddhist holy Dharma, and they can also deceive people. Or even if they do explain the Buddhist holy Dharma, they do not explain it as the true emptiness, but still manage to deceive people. They must support each other so that they can continue goofing off. They do so in order to continue goofing off. Doesn't that already explain everything? Being famous does not mean they have wisdom, are responsible, abide by precepts, and seek well-being for the benefit of sentient beings. To put it bluntly, it is actually an act of extreme greed, hatred, and ignorance. In fact, it is a sheer disgrace to Buddhism. The disciples have a pure view of their guru. This kind of cultivation, to a certain extent, provides assistance and protection for the disciples, a situation I admit. Because if a disciple cannot understand some of their guru's behaviors, or if they create their own image of the guru and force it on their guru, and then measure and compare their guru against it, applying their own unclean or biased understanding on their guru, they will lose confidence in their guru. Then their Dharma practices will collapse. It will definitely collapse and fail. According to the 50 stanzas of Guru devotion, a disciple should not peep at, focus on, or use a magnifying glass to look at the guru's minor faults. Remember, it is referring to minor faults, not big madness, or major faults. It does not mean that as a disciple, you have to obliterate all your wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation, so that you can blindly be seriously harmed, beaten, and sexually assaulted and still say that it is good, it is great, and it is a blessing, instead of using the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation to judge whether this guru really has realizations. What is the basis for a disciple to have a pure view of their guru? It is based on this guru's Dharma explanations and teachings on actual practice, rather than on whether the guru's daily life is like an ordinary person's. In other words, do not keep watching the guru to see if they will go shopping, dine, buy clothes, and go to department stores to decide whether they are a guru. What should a guru be like? The guru should sit on the meditation futon every day and does not move at all. These are just the frames you have come up with to put on a guru. A guru just looks like an ordinary person. How do we know if they are not just an ordinary person? We need to listen to their explanations on the Buddhist holy Dharma to measure their levels. Then what is the basis of having a pure view of the guru? It is based on how they teach you to practice the holy Dharma, how they explain the Buddhist holy Dharma, and how they guide you patiently. His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche once gave revelations. As everyone knows, His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche was very famous. He was renowned for practicing the great perfection, and acclaimed as the Mahasiddha of the highest caliber in the practice of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, in our contemporary times. He was also one of our three root gurus. His Holiness said, a Dharma practitioner, who has achieved the highest level in Dharma practice acts, just like an ordinary person. Please note that His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Rinpoche did not say that the higher level of a person's Dharma practice was, the crazier their behavior would be. His Holiness never said that. You have to be very clear about this. My disciple asked, could you oblige me with your valuable comments, please? You said His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche had revealed that those who have practiced the holy Dharma to the highest level are just like ordinary people. What does it mean? Let me tell you what it means. It means that this Dharma practitioner has already thoroughly understood and mastered emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. So, they will not be pretentious about their so-called connections with the supernatural beings or deliberately mystifying. They will not be full of dissimulations and cheatings in their daily activities, just to show you the persona of what everyone thinks a great Dharma practitioner should be like. They will also not brag about their own reputation, prestige, or titles. Nor will they pretend to be inscrutable in front of you. This shows they really know what emptiness, neither existence nor voidness is. So, they will be just like an ordinary person. They will not pretend to be inscrutable, just to show you the look of a great Dharma practitioner. They will not do research online and then interview all the disciples. What is a great Dharma practitioner like in your mind? Is there a stereotype? What is your thought about this? As such, those who pretend to be great Dharma practitioners will follow this stereotype, to put on an act in front of you and play to the gallery. But a true Dharma practitioner will not be like this. They are quite a character, that is, they will just be themselves. They are usually like ordinary people. They will express their views and suggestions clearly, straightforwardly, and sincerely, revealing their natural state of life. They will still retain their original personalities. You can rest assured that they will not be pretentious just to please you, but their behaviors will not contradict any precepts. And they do not mind how people look at them. They are just as ordinary as this. They feel that they are as ordinary as that. This is how I understand the Buddhist holy Dharma. It is as natural as this. If you think I have to follow your rules and not go to the department store, I'm afraid you'll have to find another person to be your guru. Therefore, one of the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra is should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions, which describes such gurus. They do not abide in notions, so they will not cling to the outer appearance, just to act like a guru in front of you. They are just like an ordinary person. In other words, if you pretend to be something just to show others, as stated in the first point, it means that you have abided in a notion. You are not following this oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. The second and third points. These 2 points mean that one is following the second oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. They are revealing their intrinsic awareness naturally. Their behaviors are being revealed naturally. They are quite a character. They will not accommodate you deliberately. So, these are the 3 behaviors explained by His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche. Because of these 3, a Dharma practitioner, who has cultivated to the highest level, will make you feel that they are just an ordinary person. Why do they behave in such an ordinary way? Because their behaviors represent the level of their Dharma practices. They have already understood well what it means by should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions, as well as not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. So, they behave pretty much just like ordinary people. That is why His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche said a Dharma practitioner, who has truly cultivated to an advanced level, would be just like an ordinary person. Because they have truly understood these 2 oral pith instructions and put them into actions. They have really mastered emptiness and practiced it in daily life, which is why you will see them like this. The world misunderstands practices of Po Chan, thinking that doing crazy behaviors means reaching the highest stage of Dharma practice. This is wrong. Hence, this false view continues to be circulated and deified. People boast such a thing and claim so-and-so to be some great Dharma practitioner, and Mahasiddha, great accomplished one. It was all written on the website. How crazy was our lineage master of so-and-so generation. He caught a fish and bit it alive to death. How amazing was he? Many people would believe this. Are you the one who is crazy, or are they? As long as we use everything of His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche as a yardstick to measure all worldly and otherworldly things, it will be very easy to tell all other things. In fact, it is very easy to distinguish between the true and false gurus, because the daily life of His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche was just like an ordinary person. But as soon as His Holiness opened his mouth to explain the Buddhist holy Dharma, you would find that His Holiness Dharma teachings were as deep as the sea, like a living Tripitaka. It was fabulous indeed. Whatever he expounded on were citations and quotations from various sutras and tantras. He could tell where it was stated by which great Dharma practitioner, or which Buddha. His Holiness was really great. Be it exoteric Buddhist sutras or esoteric Buddhist tantras, His Holiness mastered and integrated the subject through a comprehensive study to the core. He was truly remarkable. Having followed him for more than 10 years, I can only describe him like this: he was truly marvelous and outstanding. He was knowledgeable, thorough, clear, and insightful. Unlike ordinary people, his views and conducts were in congruence with each other. He could explain the profound in simple terms, and his knowledge of the Buddhist holy Dharma was broad and profound. His Dharma teachings could hit the nail on the head, and was well organized and tightly structured. Look at the prayer written by His Holiness, a prayer for world peace, that you all read every time you come to our Dharma events. It was written completely in compliance with the format of prayers without missing any subtle points. The structure is strict, clear, and according to Dharma. If you know Tibetan, the prayer even rhymes when you recite it in Tibetan, just like when we read the poems. It is really amazing. His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche further advised us that there are 3 kinds of Dharma practitioners. Firstly, there are those who look like Dharma practitioners outwardly, but inwardly they are not real practitioners. Secondly, there are those who talk about their views as if they are higher than the sky, but lack actual practice. They do not practice the holy Dharma nor verify and realize it. There is a gap between their views and conducts, such that their views and conducts never match. Thirdly, there are those who do not look like Dharma practitioners outwardly, but who are in fact genuine practitioners inside, as their views and conducts match together as one. This is stated in the contemporary Mahasiddha, with many prophesies. Our Lord of Refuge and Protector, His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche, page 150, Spiritual Advice for Dharma Practitioners. You can have a look. There is an electronic version of this book. You will see it when you scroll down on the homepage of the Dudjom Buddhist Association International website. There are Chinese and English versions, which are available for free download. In addition to the words of His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche, His Holiness Kyabya Dudjom Rinpoche II, another Dharma king, who was also considered to have practiced the great perfection to a very high level in our Red sect, and also one of our three root gurus, said the same thing too. It was stated as such in his Extracting the Quintessence of Accomplishment. Oral instructions for the practice of mountain retreat expounded simply and directly in their essential nakedness. Although a yogi like this, united to the natural, that is, the Dharma practitioner, who has already integrated with the state of emptiness of his realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment, has the appearance of an ordinary person, they look exactly like an ordinary person. His mind dwells in effortless vision of Dharmakaya, that is, he is always in samadhi. Even always in samadhi cannot describe such a state. It refers to the degree of clarity and unbiasedness of his realizing and knowing. And without action he traverses all the levels and paths. To traverse what all levels? It is to traverse all the cognitions in the three realms, all the paths. It is a situation where he can directly enter the state of oneness of the Dharma realm through his realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. So, his behavior bears no difference from any ordinary person. It is the very mind mentioned in the oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. Without any attachment, the mind that one develops is totally united to the natural, and fully conforms to the degree of clarity of the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. In the mountain retreat, His Holiness Kyabya Dudjom Rinpoche II also said, to enter the path of Dharma, it is not enough to adopt its outer appearances. You cannot judge one's level of Dharma practice by one's outer appearance, nor can you rely on an outer appearance as your Dharma practice. Dharma practice does not mean one has to sit still. You should not think that if you do not sit still, but go shopping in a department store instead, you are not considered to be practicing the holy Dharma. You cannot use the outer appearance as the basis for your Dharma practice. Whether for measuring others or as a standard for Dharma practice, it is not appropriate to base it on outer appearances. Alright, regarding bliss, luminosity, and no thought, bliss was already explained in the previous session. Initially, I was going to explain luminosity and no thought in today's session. However, I could not do so as someone had raised other questions. So, I will explain them in the next session. Back to the email we have been explaining since the 16th and the 17th lectures of the series. I will help you recap this email again. This email was received on the 25th of November 2018. It said, I came across Vajra Master Pema Ladran's YouTube channel while looking for information about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which I felt very beneficial. My thanks to the Master for explaining and disclosing such important Dharma teachings, which once again ignited my desire to be saved in this life. After listening to several sessions of the Dharma lectures, I have 2 questions, and was wondering if any Dharma fellow brothers could help answer them. Or would it be possible for the Master to be compassionate to clarify my doubts? Firstly, it is regarding the situation of accomplishing the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya during the Bardo. From previous Buddhist studies, I have heard that one will possess all 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, at the same time as soon as one has attained Buddhahood. When explaining the Bardo, the master described under what circumstances one will become a Dharmakaya Buddha, what circumstances one will become a Sambhogakaya Buddha, and what circumstances one will become a Nirmanakaya Buddha, as if the three kayas can be separated and are different kinds of Buddhas. I wonder if my understanding is wrong. This statement seems to be different from the general perception in Buddhism. In fact, we already explained this in the 16th lecture, the mystery of the ages derived from obtaining the three kayas when becoming a Buddha, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. Secondly, the believer said, I saw a lecture video about the fallacies of the crazy wisdom, that is, the first episode of the visualization practice of compassion and bodhicitta series. She said that she had looked up online information about Sogyal Rinpoche. It's a shame that such a shocking scandal has occurred. At the same time, I saw a very long article by one Rinpoche on this matter. She even provided the link for me to have a look. She said, his views are different from yours. That is, his views are different from Master Pema Ladran's. This was also already explained in the 16th lecture. Thirdly, she said, it is regarding the stories of the Kagyu school's lineage masters. There are 4 stages in the Dharma practice. One will go mad during the last stage before attaining Buddhahood. This has been explained in detail in the 17th as well as today's lectures. Next, she said she knew an American disciple of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who I criticized in the first episode of the Compassion series. He held a pure view towards his master's behaviors. He told me that Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche back then. He said it was back then. People do change, right? Back then, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche did aspire to yield skillful means, and he was so selfless that he even put aside his own reputation. That disciple himself and all other students felt they benefited greatly in their Dharma practices. I have also explained this already. The so-called pure view that arises without the wisdom acquired through hearing, contemplation, and cultivation does not mean that it will be beneficial to their Dharma practices. On the contrary, it is a kind of harm and ignorance. It is just that their ignorance will become even more complete and extreme, to the point that they will never recover. Understand? How can it be called a pure view if it has no solid foundation of hearing, contemplation, and cultivation? It only means they are completely ignorant, to the point that they will have no chance to rise again. The 5th point is about the supernatural powers of the Buddha. I used to wonder why it was said that the Buddha had many human traces, such as that he would be injured and become ill. But at the same time, the Mahayana Sutras also claim that the Buddha's supernatural powers are so great. The Buddhist Tantras also state that the Buddha manifested the appearance of the wheel-turning sage king to teach his disciples without being subjected to any limitation of the human world. Could you tell me if the masters have provided any explanation for these? Where can I find it? These will be explained in the next session. I repeat, you often that one must go crazy prior to attaining Buddhahood. This is a misunderstanding that has been accumulated for decades, a view that has been pushed to the peak more and more now. This erroneous view has caused the nature of the minds of many Dharma practitioners to deviate from the right path, and many esoteric Buddhist learners to focus their minds on strange and eccentric crazy behavior instead of focusing on mind training. They even gave it a beautiful name, crazy wisdom, the wisdom of craziness. It has been glorified as a kind of wisdom, but in fact, it is a crazy behavior of violating the precepts. They call it holy madness, or crazy wisdom. Anyone who believes that these are a kind of wisdom is indeed crazy. Basically, there is no observation of the precepts at all, as everything is already a violation of the social norms and Buddhist teachings that has been inappropriately justified. If this continues, Buddhism will collapse. All behaviors of greed, hatred, and ignorance will be considered reasonable. This will become strong evidence for esoteric Buddhism to be resisted by exoteric Buddhists. Such crazy behavior was described by practitioners of the Kagyu school as the manifestation of someone with advanced enlightenment and advanced qualifications. Some people from the Nyingma school also said so. In fact, it is a phenomenon of the spiritual crisis of Dharma practitioners heading into a blind alley. This has been explained in the first episode of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series. For example, the book Crazy Wisdom is a book that will lead you to a dead end. The content seems to be an obscure text with very advanced learning that beats around the bush, disguised as if it is very profound knowledge. And it is even euphemistically called Zen. In fact, it is to take you to go around in circles, only to end up with a literary dilemma of putting on an act without providing any answer. Those who follow it to think or practice will end up in a state of craziness with twists and turns, and they will enter a dead end with no way out. If you still remember, I did mention in the first episode of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series that I saw Guru Rinpoche in a dream. Guru Rinpoche specifically asked me to realize clearly that one will not go crazy when practicing the great perfection at its highest level. Do you remember that? It is never a requirement for great perfection practitioners to absolutely indulge their behaviors crazily. Practicing the great perfection and revealing the Dharma nature naturally does not mean indulging your own behavior. There is no reason to be crazy. Guru Rinpoche required us to clarify something. What is to be clarified? The behavior that comes from our own 100% correct and unbiased realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment has to be very pure, clear, and in line with the precepts. If you have gone mad and ended up in a state of no realizing and knowing at all, it means that you have experienced a spiritual crisis during your Dharma practice. You wanted to enter the realizing and knowing of 100% perfect enlightenment, but it plunged to 0% instead. So you became crazy like this. Some who are not so crazy and do not kill people may still have 20% left. Those who kill and set fire and do everything have 0% left, or it may even have dropped to a negative figure. As a matter of fact, it means that their realizing and knowing has suddenly dropped to the lowest level. This is what Guru Rinpoche would like us to clarify and correct. So, Guru Rinpoche gave some hints in my dream. I have not disclosed 2/3 of the dream, which are Guru Rinpoche's instructions and entrustment to us. This is confidential, so I will not say it. In the first episode, I told a little more than 1/3 of it, not yet half. You can think of it as half of the dream. There is actually a large part of it unsaid. It is a kind of entrustment, which will not be disclosed. Now I have disclosed a little bit of it. That is, one will not go mad when practicing the great perfection. It does not mean that one has to be crazy or indulge oneself to practice the great perfection. It is not revealing your behavior naturally by doing whatever you like that is called practicing the great perfection. It is definitely not like this. Guru Rinpoche hoped that we could rectify the biggest common problem of Dharma practitioners nowadays, a mistake that has already got many Dharma practitioners into serious trouble. Well, today's lecture has finished.